How's it going, everyone? Hope you all are doing well. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Esfandiar Baraheni. So Esfandiar Baraheni is the current lead reporter for with SDPN, a sports publication that disseminates sports news on a daily basis. He is also the current sideline reporter for the Canadian Elite Basketball League, covering games for both the Brampton Honey Badgers and the Niagara River Lions. S for short obtained a diploma in sports media from the College of Sports Media. The program specialized in both a radio and television program, giving him a hands-on experience being comfortable in front of the camera as a host and learn the technical skills behind the scenes as well. He was notably known as a show host for two shows on Spotify. The first one being Wednesday Night Cultured with S and Crew, a show covering all things hip hop, music, and culture related things. The second one being Saturday Afternoons, I'll Name This Later, a witty show about film and TV covering favorite shows and movies with a fun twist. He was also an NBA content creator with The Score. That's how I formally got to know his content. And now S joins me live. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you for the introduction.
Was that was
That
that a
was,
was that a good covering of
yeah,
your
yeah. It was more than good, man. Yo,
Oh,
thank you.
perfect.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
it.
So I did like all
And
the research and
like I know you're Persian, so you're gonna nail it. But you absolutely nailed the pronunciation, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. It's like the first time I've ever
Yeah,
heard
well,
it be,
the thing is, your name is very special, and by the way, like respects to your late father who passed away
Thank you.
a few years ago. Was it last year or a few years ago?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. Yeah.
2 years ago. Yeah, sorry about the passing, man, but he was a great man.
Thank you, man.
He was a famous, for those of you who don't know, he was a famous poet in the Persian culture. Very, very famous, very respectful, and he was the a professor at U of T, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
He was. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
So
Thank you. I
yeah, no
appreciate it.
worries, man. No worries. Yeah, so respects to him. But as for our interview, yeah, how are you doing? S, how's everything?
I'm good. I'm good. So far, so good. Getting into the swing of things with the Raptors season and the NBA season in general. Today is the in-season tournament, so should be
Yeah, it's
fun. But
starting. I'm gonna touch on that in our interview as well.
yeah,
So, just before we begin, like, were you always interested in sports from a young age, or did that kind of like pave the path when you started like playing with your friends and stuff?
yeah. It started actually. My cousin sort of introduced me to basketball when I was like 9 or 10 years old. Before that, I was very much so like a stay inside type of kid. I was constantly playing video games. Now, to be fair, I was playing a lot of sports video games, but I never
Mhm.
got outside to really play any of the games. And then ultimately, I got introduced into basketball through that, and I started playing pretty religiously, constantly. I thought I could make the NBA, as every kid does when they're
Yeah, for
initially
sure.
at that age. And then, slowly that dream fades away and you start to think of other realities of how you can get involved in basketball. Because for me, I don't know, I think it was always going to be how I was going to find a way to get myself into basketball, just working
Yeah,
with
for sure.
basketball in some sort of way.
Hmm.
And so I tried business school. I wanted to maybe get into sports management, and I was like, I'm going to be the GM of the Raptors.
That's a great dream.
I went, yeah, yeah. I went to law school. I was like, oh, I'm going to become a player agent, but
Mm.
it kind of shook out in a way where doing sports media.
Well, you do have a college of sports media background. You went
Yeah.
to college of sports media. How was that for you? Did you like the program? How was that for you?
The experience for me was awesome, man. I was a little bit older when I went to that program,
Mhm.
so like I said, I had experience in different schools. So for me, it was pretty easy to just jump into things. There
Mhm.
wasn't a learning curve of getting used to college or getting used to university or some of
Sure.
the like workload stuff. For me,
Mhm.
it wasn't that difficult. So
Mhm.
it was awesome to be able to experience it. I learned a lot of things, especially on the technical side of things, video editing, just getting better with my computer skills, if you will,
Yeah.
and gaining more confidence. They put you in a lot of different positions to succeed, and I definitely got that experience, or I got the
Yeah.
best out of that experience.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm happy to hear that it worked out for you. Now, moving to the Raptors, which is our main focus for today, what do you
Yeah.
think of this new look Raptors team? I mean, last night against Philly, they sucked big time. They did not perform like they did against Milwaukee. What
Yeah.
happened, and what do you think of this new look Raptors team in general, the new coach, the new culture?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Raptors are in a position of transition. They are transitioning from one era to another. You know, the Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet era to, you know, an era that's led by Scotty Barnes. And right now we're seeing sort of the growing pains of that transition, the ugly parts of that transition. The offense doesn't look the greatest because not all of the parts are supposed to technically be here, either long term or short term. And ultimately, you know, you see the end goal, you see what the future is supposed to be with Scotty, with Darko, with Grady Dick, maybe even Precious Achua and OG
Yeah,
Anunoby.
for sure.
But I think ultimately this season has been one of transition so far, and I imagine it's going to continue to be the same.
Yeah, yeah, for sure it will. For sure it will. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to kind of guess how the standings will play out since we're so early in the season.
Sure.
But I feel as if they are better than last season. Dennis Schroeder's a way better, much better fit than Fred VanVleet. And we got a bunch of role players like Jalen McDaniels, Garrett Temple. I'm not saying they're the best, or not saying they're worst, but they will have
Mm-hmm.
an impact off the bench for sure. Now, you touched on this earlier, S. What do you think of the new in-season tournament? I think it's really cool that they're implementing this strategy. I think it's going to bring more players and more fans to the game itself.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
I love it, man. I really do love the in-season tournament. I think it's such a great idea, and there's no real downside to it. You know what I
Mm,
mean? If anything, you're
yeah.
just making the November and December games in the schedule where teams might not care as much, make them matter a little bit more. And ultimately, I love that aspect of it. I love the fact that the NBA is saying, hey, it's not just the Larry O'Brien trophy that we're trying to fight for. There's this new trophy, the in-season tournament trophy that, you know, is incentivizing the regular season.
Mhm.
And I think that's such a great idea. And I love that they're incorporating, you know, the new court and new jerseys. And I'm
Yeah,
sure the
yeah,
broadcast will look different too. So
yeah.
ultimately, I love the idea.
Yeah, talking about the jerseys, by the way, I saw you like posted about the Raptors jersey. I reposted it. I posted on my story as well on Instagram. It's looking very nice. I like the New Jersey concept. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, but moving kind of segue from the whole NBA and the Raptors, what do you think about like Team Canada in general, how they performed in the FIBA World Cup, finishing third? Not a lot of people expected them to be as this good.
Yeah.
They assembled a great roster because from our starting lineup to almost our bench, they're all in the NBA. So what do you
Yeah.
think of that?
It was, I mean, look, it was an incredible team. Probably the most talented team that the men's side has ever put together.
For sure.
And you know, the result was incredible because it was probably ahead of schedule.
Hmm.
It was ahead of schedule in the sense that, like, yes, there had been this bubbling feeling of Team Canada is in its golden age of basketball, and yes, it is, but the results weren't there. So ultimately, there was tons of pressure on this team to get to a certain point where, one, there would be tons of sponsorships waiting for them, and two, they could book themselves a ticket to the Olympics for the first time in, you know, nearly 20
Yeah.
years, more than
Yeah.
20 years. So
Mhm.
ultimately, I think they did an incredible job. I was going to say the Raptors. Canada basketball
Yeah.
has a star in the making in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and when you have that type of player, when you have all of these complementary players that kind of work together, it can be very special. And this type of team really helps promote the game for other players, other people to pick up the game as well. And so, you know, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to have basketball kids coming up saying, "Oh, I watched them win the gold and I was like, I want to
Yeah.
hoop." You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
the
You
influence
kind
of
of
that
see
can be really big.
Yeah, you kind of see the shift in the whole Canada basketball. I mean, the roster back then was only Steve Nash and a bunch of other mediocre players like, along the side. But now you're looking at the whole new shift in the NBA with Canada basketball rising and more players coming into the league.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just amazing to watch because basketball is our sport, it's Canada's sport.
Yeah.
People forget about that and they keep bashing on the Raptors, they keep bashing on Canada basketball. But I feel as if it's since they've qualified to the Olympics, I feel as if they're going to go at least be a top four contender in the Olympics, in my opinion. What do you think?
Man, I agree. I mean, look,
Yeah.
the Olympic competition is tough, and USA is gonna bring out, you know, their A team in the Olympics. Serbia
Mhm.
is obviously gonna bring back Nikola Jokic. There's gonna be tons of tough competition, and because it's just 12 teams in the Olympics, it makes it a lot harder for you to go further. Which means you need to get commitment, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What
Yeah.
is Jamal Murray going to be doing this summer? What is Andrew Wiggins going to be doing this summer? That's going to be the big question for Canada basketball, so that they can bolster this group even more.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, bolster the group. I mean, Andrew and Jamal are two of the best players in the NBA, Canadian basketball players in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
And they will definitely bolster the team if they acquire them on the roster
Yeah.
and they compete, immensely in the competitions in was it Paris Olympics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Paris
Yeah.
Olympics.
So yeah, well, it's exciting to watch, man. It's fun times to be a Canada basketball fan and a Raptors fan as well. There's a lot of promising hope for both teams. So now shifting from basketball, NBA, just in general, I'm just going to ask you some personal questions about the sports media industry, if that's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
What was your best experience in this industry? Which place? I mean, you work for a lot of companies. Which place did you feel like you gained the best skills possible, or like, what was the best
That's
experience
tough.
for you? I know it's
That's
tough.
tough. Yeah,
Give
honestly,
me
it
a
is really
couple.
tough.
Yeah, you don't have to narrow it down for one. Just give
Yeah,
me
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll give you a couple here. I thought I in school I got to be an intern for the TSN Raptors broadcast crew,
Mhm.
and
Cool.
I got to get a behind the scenes of how essentially they get their broadcast together, whether it be the pregame show, the postgame show, seeing how Jack and Leo and all those guys kind of
Yeah,
get things in order for the show, right?
yeah,
Especially the behind the scenes producers who obviously know who they are, but yeah, ultimately that was a very cool experience because you see the behind the scenes of how the sausage gets made, in so to speak. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That was awesome. My experience at the Score was also awesome. I got to learn a lot about optimizing stuff on YouTube and figuring out how to bring out things, whether it be through thumbnails, whether it be through titles, and they really helped me get my writing a lot more sharp. I had a boss who was very meticulous, and I loved him for that, to be honest with you, now looking back at that. And obviously at SDPN now, I'm given a ton of freedom to do really anything I want on the NBA side of things. They allow me to explore and really promote myself in multiple different ways. So I've had good experiences all around, man. I can't really say one is better than the
No,
other, but
yeah, I understand. Yeah,
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 but
I
they've all
totally.
been they've all been awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's great to hear. Like everything that you've experienced in this industry is great. Because down the line, I'm going to ask you some personal ones as well.
Sure.
So like you said, just in general, like the mentors you've gained and you've seen and you've experienced with being by their side and under their tutelage, you've managed to prosper in this
Mhm.
industry, and it's beautiful to watch because you're an amazing guy. You're an amazing journalist, and I really do respect for you and
Thank
like
you, man.
love
Thank
your
you.
work for what you do on the Score. SDPN. I just followed them a couple months ago. It just sort of came on my feed. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then you were on it. I'm like, oh, this is pretty interesting. I know you from the Score, and now you're on SDPN. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they're a great sports publication. I'm going to put the link in the description below.
Thank you.
S's handles as well as Esfandiar's handles as well, so you guys can go follow my guys. So, but in general, have you ever like interviewed any basketball players as a sideline reporter or anything, and which ones like kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, this was actually not as a sideline reporter,
Mhm.
but I interviewed Andre Miller, which
Mhm.
was a very very cool experience. He used to be the Nuggets point guard in the early 2000s, late
Yep. Yeah.
2000s, and it was very cool because he's a player that I enjoyed watching when I was a kid.
Mhm.
So just being able to interview him was cool. I
Mhm.
also interviewed Larry Hughes, which was
Oh,
another like role player type of guy in the early 2000s, played on a couple of interesting teams, the Philly teams and the Cavaliers team. So it was cool to interview him on that side. In terms of sideline reporting, I got to talk to AJ Lawson, who is the
okay.
Dallas Mavericks guard right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's a two-way player for the Dallas Mavericks, but it was just cool to talk to him about like Luca and Kyrie, how it is in Dallas, and he's obviously a former CBL alum, so he was talking about his experience there as well. So those are probably just a couple of the ones that jump out to mind.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a couple that you start out with, and there's probably going to be more depending on how you go down the line. Honestly,
Hey, hopefully, man. Hopefully, yeah.
hopefully, yeah, I wish you the best with NBA players coming up to you. Hopefully, it's going to be Luca. Hopefully, it's going to be Steph, Kyrie. You never know what's going to happen
Hey,
in the line. You wish for the best,
yeah.
man. And I do for you. So
Thank you, man.
hopefully it works out for you. So as this is a pretty interesting question that I came up with. You don't have to tell me the whole story, but maybe just big points of the story.
Sure.
What was your like first like experience in the sports media industry? Who gave you that like platform to go, hey, go on and talk about this sport or do
Yeah.
this? What was that?
Oh, that has to be. I used to work for a publication called DefPen. They're a website based out of New York,
Okay.
and I actually reached out to them when I was like 14 or 15 years old. They had posted on Twitter. They're like, "Hey, we need writers, NBA writers." So I kind of reached out, and I was like, "I'll write. I'm good. I want to just get some experience under my belt." And really, Jared, Rob, those guys, they'll know who they are. But like they gave me so many opportunities to like write, to do some video content, to do some interviewing, and like I spent, I don't know, while I was figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, I think I spent like 7 or 8 years there, just kind of writing and doing things and figuring out, oh, can I do video stuff? Can I do this? Can I do that? And they gave me a platform, man. Without them, I would not even know if I'd be interested in this type of stuff. So I have to give credit to them because that was probably the experience that I
So
had, that my initial experience.
so
Yeah.
DefPen was your foundation that kind of got you started in this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing to hear, man. So since DefPen was your inspiration to get into this industry, like kind of a foundation, who were your inspirations to get into this industry in general? I mean, when I grew up, what stood out to me, the first player I watched was LeBron James on the Miami Heat when he was playing with
Hmm.
Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. I was a kid and I
Yeah.
fell in love with them. And that's how I got introduced to Michael Jordan, started following basketball, started following
Right.
the Raptors, and then things kind of grew from there. So tell me about who were your main inspirations in the sports industry, like who got you started?
Yeah, it's sort of twofold. Like there's
Mhm.
the sports media industry, and I was always enamored with the Raptors pregame show and postgame show, so I would always watch it consistently when I was a kid. I can think of Chuck Swirsky being a main inspiration of mine. Get out the salami and cheese, mama. This ball game is over, right? Like he brought so much energy to the game. Obviously, Jack Armstrong. My principal when I was a kid was Paul Jones. He used to be
Oh,
yeah, and he actually left midway through. I don't know. I was in like grade 3 or 4, and he left to join the Raptors that year. And I was like, wow, you could do that. You could just like go and work for the Raptors. That's very cool. So I think sports media wise, some of those people, Norma Wick, also she was the sideline reporter for the Raptors for a while when I was a kid. I actually had her as a teacher at CSM too, which was a very cool experience. But yeah, those are like the sports media inspirations I would say. And then when it comes to just like athletes and getting me into basketball, I got into basketball because of Kobe Bryant. I watched the 2002 NBA Finals, I believe it was, and they were absolutely incredible. Obviously, they won their third championship that year, him and Shaq, and it was amazing. I was like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Around the corner, though, everybody was talking about this really hyped prospect by the name of LeBron James, and I was like, oh man, I have to. I like that's how I fell in love with the game. So Kobe sparked it, but then LeBron, I got to see
yeah,
everything that kind of came up to be, and it's incredible because I've been watching basketball as long as that man has been playing professional basketball. It's
long time.
crazy to think of. Yeah, yeah,
That's a long time. So yeah, like to sum it up, R.I.P. Kobe first and foremost.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
To sum it up, so sports journalists nowadays, their old careers were teachers. For those of you who don't,
Hey man, I don't know what it is, but like, listen, maybe it's a pathway. Who knows? Yeah.
yeah, but in general, like yeah, R.I.P. Kobe. Kobe, for those of you who don't know, played for the Los Angeles Lakers for the tenure of his career.
Yep.
LeBron James started from Cleveland, shifted to Miami, came back to Cleveland, won a chip for his hometown because he's the hometown king of Akron, Ohio, which is not too far from Cleveland itself. Then he took his sights to the Los Angeles Lakers to play for the team Kobe played all his life. So those
Yep.
are just a summary for those of you who don't know these players. So back to the NBAS, how do you feel about the new look teams in NBA in general? Like Victor Wembanyama is doing insane on the San Antonio Spurs. The
Right.
Suns have an elite roster now as compared to last season. Boston and Milwaukee got so much more potent in the season, in the
Hmm.
offseason, that is,
Yeah.
and their potential Eastern Conference Finals matchups we're looking at.
Hmm.
Tell me a little about that from your perspective.
Man, I mean, everybody in the NBA right now is enamored with Victor Wembanyama. He has just been so special to watch,
Mhm.
and he's so
Mhm.
unique compared to any other prospect I've. I mean, I just told you how long I've been watching basketball, and like, it's nothing I've ever seen before in my life, even compared to what Victor Wembanyama is doing, how he looks on the court. And he is going to be defining, excuse me, the next generation of basketball. You can just see, like Steph Curry came in and created the 3 point era, like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant came in and created this, wing type offensive hub. Victor Wembanyama is going to come in and completely shape the way we look at basketball. So I'm excited to see the future with what he looks like. It seems like he hasn't even scratched the surface as to what his potential could be, which is scary.
Yeah.
And as far as the rest of the NBA, I think there's one word to use to describe it, and that's parity. There's a lot. While there are teams at the top, like you mentioned in Boston and Phoenix and Denver and Milwaukee, I think ultimately like there are a lot of good teams in the NBA, and there's no easy nights anymore. Maybe the Washington Wizards are an easy night. Maybe they don't like to win too many games this season. Maybe the Portland Trailblazers are a bit of an easy night, although the Raptors lost to them on Monday. Um, but for the most part, 28, 29 teams are going to be fighting every single day.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so
And
compelling.
And yeah, for sure, it's compelling. And like you said, like I with my old with my first interview with local Rosano, we talked about how the gate is much wide open as compared to last season. I'm looking
Yeah.
through 1 through 10. Okay, 1 to 3 is okay. They're solid. They're good to go. But three, like 4 to 10, wide gate. Even 11 and 12 can peek in from both
Yeah.
respective conferences. So I mean, this is insane. And like with the in-season tournament, we're gonna see how compelling these teams are gonna be, how
Right.
insane they're gonna perform on the court against each other. It's gonna be really really cool. Like, how do you feel about this in-season tournament? I know you talked about it, but how do you feel in general?
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. I love every aspect of it. And yeah, like I think it'll be cool to see some of the younger teams maybe get some more run. I would love to see a deep run from like the Orlando Magic, who have Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, or the Detroit Pistons, who have Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren,
yeah,
or the Oklahoma City Thunder, like we mentioned earlier with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and them. I think it's this tournament is going to be a good place for some of these younger teams to one, get some playoff experience, postseason game time type of experience, and two, just maybe make some noise, which will be the most interesting part.
yeah, for sure. I mean, Victor Wembanyama, in my opinion, from my own perspective, is like Tim Duncan and David Robinson combined into one gigantic human being. And
Yeah, man,
he's
mixed with
performing.
Kevin Durant's shooting ability, like
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
yeah,
you can
it's
stop this guy. He did a ridiculous play against the Warriors. I still can't believe he did that in the middle of the
yeah,
right.
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, the spinorama and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Victor Wembanyama just got drafted the first overall pick in the 23rd NBA draft, 23 NBA draft. And yeah, he's on the San Antonio Spurs. He's a center and he's playing lights out right now. A lot of people are focusing their attention towards him.
yeah.
But
If you don't know Wemby, he is the best prospect in the NBA since LeBron James.
yeah,
That's how massive
yeah, he's
of a
kind of
player he
putting
is.
like LeBron because LeBron's coming to his like end of his career. He's
Yeah.
starting his own career right now. So
Hmm.
for those of you wondering, he's going to be. I'm not saying the next LeBron James or the next Kobe Bryant, but we'll see.
But he could be.
He
Yeah,
could
he's
be.
he's well on his
Oh, he
way
could
to.
be. If
Yeah,
he continues to go like this, I mean, he'll be an amazing. Like he's what almost 7 foot, or is he 7 foot? And he's
he's
shooting
7'4".
7 foot 4, and he's shooting threes, and he's doing ridiculous ballerina moves like the Circus Dole in the middle
Yeah,
of the court.
yeah,
You can stop this guy, so he's going to be a monster for sure. Definitely going to be an NBA legend in the future. But yeah, I'm looking at like him, like Tim Duncan and David Robinson when they were on the Spurs when they were winning chips with them
yeah.
championships. Um, in the future, maybe he could bring a chip. I mean, I'm not saying the San Antonio Spurs team this year is a playoff team for example, but if they carry like if Victor Wembanyama carries them, it could happen. But in the future, they will definitely get draft picks. They will definitely get more players to complement Victor
Oh yeah,
Wembanyama. around
Yeah.
him, if they surround him with a great group of young players, they will be a dark horse in the NBA. Mark my words.
Yeah. And
Um,
honestly, they have some interesting pieces right now on the
yeah,
Spurs with Devin Vassell, Jeremy
Devin Vassell,
Sohan,
yeah,
Trey Jones, Keldon
yep,
Johnson.
yep,
I think they have a very interesting team.
yeah,
Maybe they make some play in noise this year. Who knows? Like
yeah. You never know,
there's a
right?
possibility. Yeah.
Like in the in-season tournament, I think that's like a great gateway that the NBA is like implementing for like
Yeah.
these teams that you don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. They have a shot at the in-season tournament. So I think
Right.
that's
Right.
their fair chance for everyone to, get competitive and see their talents before they go into the actual playoffs come at the end of the season, of course.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I know it's down the line. As this is my second last question to ask you, but what are like the potential kind of playoff matchups you have for the respective conferences, both East and West? I know it's a long way. The trade deadline hasn't even started yet. Way
Yeah.
long way, but what do you feel the potential matchups are going to be?
I I think the one matchup everybody is going to be looking for is Boston Milwaukee,
Yeah,
just in the Eastern Conference. You know,
yeah,
Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, that swap. Obviously, Giannis and Jason Tatum. They've had clashes in the playoffs before. They're the two best teams in the Eastern Conference. It should be really fun. Ultimately, I think in the West, I would like to see a Lakers and Clippers series. That
yeah.
game this week was really fun. It was really competitive, and like both of these teams are a little bit on the older side, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of get to another level this season despite
Yeah,
being
sure.
older.
I mean,
Yeah, I could think of like Nuggets Warriors is another one that I'm
yeah,
interested
like
in because they didn't get a chance to play last year. But yeah,
yeah, yeah, the great matchups. I totally agree with you. Like, just in general, like the Clippers when they got James Harden, I'm like, wow, you have James Harden, Westbrook, Paul George,
hmm
and Kawhi Leonard on one team. Now, I'm not saying they're a really bad team; they're an amazing team. But if you have so many star players, and you know this, you've seen the game, you've learned the NBA. If you see these teams with a bunch of players and they don't have chemistry, they're not going to excel. So tell me a little about like the Clippers and acquiring Harden and whatnot.
Yeah, I actually really like the James Harden trade for the Clippers.
Mhm.
I think their half court offense was just so stagnant over the last couple of years. It went into ISO ball a lot, and while yeah, James Harden adding to that probably adds a little bit to the ISO ball, but I ultimately think he's such a otherworldly creator in the half court that he can generate so many open looks for you, and that's going to help the Clippers half court in the regular season. He can also will you to wins himself, so ultimately he's going to give more rest for guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and I think that gives them a lot of leeway when it comes to the playoff time. And maybe I said this when James Harden was on the Sixers, it probably still applied, but he didn't buy in. I ultimately think having Kawhi and Paul George there will allow him to do less in the playoffs and
Mm.
kind of let them take over. And maybe that'll be enough for this Clippers team to get over the hump finally.
Yeah, I mean, like this is insane. Like Dame to the Milwaukee Bucks was insane, but this is an insane move as well. I feel like we're playing 2K and everyone's just using trade over right nowadays. Um,
Yeah.
but like the Clippers, like Westbrook and Harden, for those of you who don't know, they played for the Oklahoma City Thunder back in like the early 2010s. They ultimately lost to the Miami Heat in the finals. With that being said, Harden got shipped off to the Houston Rockets and they kind of disassembled disassembled the roster. Now
Yeah.
they're reunited. How do you feel about Westbrook and Harden reuniting in LA?
Yeah, it is what it is. They're definitely at different points in their careers now, especially Westbrook, who isn't nearly the MVP type of player that he was before. Harden is still like a borderline all star, but you sort of like it's cool. It's a very cool story that these guys have reunited. They reunited in Houston. There's actually been sort of every iteration of the Harden, Westbrook, Durant trio, almost every iteration. So it's just interesting to see. And I guess it's another cool part because they're both South Central LA guys, right? Paul George is, Kawhi San Diego, but still like, all those guys are from South Central California. So it's very cool that like they're all on one team together.
Yeah, like I'm just looking at the Clippers roster right now. I pulled it up and like I'm looking through 1 through 16, man, and it's insane. I mean, their bench players are Bones Highland. You got Joshua Primo, a former Raptor, beloved Raptor, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, and you got PJ Tucker. like this is a really scary LA Clippers team. I hope they could excel. They're going to excel in the playoffs for sure. But let's see what happens, man. This is exciting times to be an LA Clippers fan for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as I'm going to wrap things up, but before I do, I'm just going to give you one last question before we
Yeah,
go. So in general, thank you for doing this, man. It was a great conversation.
absolutely, man.
Last question though. Any advice you would like to give, like you want to impart on the future generations that would like to get into this sports media kind of content creation industry? What would it be?
Oh man, I get asked this question a good amount of times, and I still don't know how to answer.
I
I
figured.
would, I would probably say do things yourself, and go out and put yourself out there. You don't have to wait for a publication. You don't have to wait for a website or a blog or anything. Go out and do those things yourself. Even if you don't get the views that you want to, even if you don't get the traction that you want to on social media, it's giving you the experience. It's giving you the reps to be able to put yourself out there, and ultimately you'll get better for it. So just put yourself out there.
Yeah,
Just
like
just
that's
post
what
your
I
things.
did. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just starting this for fun. I've always been a basketball fan. Like I said, since I was a kid, LeBron James introduced me to the wonderful world of
Yeah.
basketball, and then my
Yes.
love just grew. And now I just started reaching out to people like yourselves who are in the content creation industry with Luca Rosano as well. For those of you wanting to go back to my video, you can. It's on my channel.
Some
This
people say me and him look alike. I don't know if that applies anymore, but
I mean,
some yeah,
symbol.
yeah, I used to get like the pictures on Twitter be like you and him look exactly the same, and it's like
I don't
I
see
don't know.
it. It's like
It's just dude with beard, you know. So
it's so different. I don't know.
I,
I think it's the
I
beard,
don't know.
maybe. Maybe it's the
Yeah,
beard.
I don't know.
But yeah, like he's a great content creation creator. I don't know if you met him, but he's a great guy. Yeah, Luca Rosano, of course, I was my first interview. Esfandiar Baraheni, S for short, is my second interview. Thank you so much for doing this, S. I had an amazing time with you. Esfandiar Baraheni, everyone. You can follow him on his Instagram as well, and as well as his Twitter feed as well. I'll put the links into the description below for you so you can go follow him. You can follow SDPN Sports on Instagram, TikTok as well, and the CEBL on Instagram and TikTok as well. This is Daniel Levisani signing off. Thank you so much, Esfandiar, for doing this.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.